Thank you so much, Sam, for that generous introduction. And Robin, all you do and everybody at the organization. I'm extremely flattered and honored to receive this award, but it's particularly gratifying to get an award from an organization that's been in the trenches fighting for so long. So I am sorry I can't be there with everyone, but I am just really honored beyond belief to receive this award. As Sam said, this is a tough time for immigrants. I've been doing this work for more than 25 years, and needless to say, this has been the worst period in those 25 years. The family separation policy has been the worst thing I've seen. The administration has enacted one policy after another to try and ban asylum seekers on the southern border. There's been an attempt to take away due process even for immigrants in the interior of the country, what's called expanded expedited removal. Of course, there's the attempt to take away DACA. There has been elimination of benefits. It's just been one thing after another, and not just the policies, but of course the rhetoric, the attempt to demonize the immigrant communities. And now with COVID, you see the administration using COVID as a pretext to try and enact many of the policies that they weren't able to push forward beforehand. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the family separation practice. As I said, it's far and away the worst thing that I have seen in the years that I've been working on this. As I think most people know, it began in the fall of 2017. We ultimately brought a lawsuit. We thought maybe there were a couple of hundred children who had been separated from their parents when we brought the lawsuit. It now turns out the latest tally is that there have been more than 5,500 children taken from their families. Many of them, hundreds, are just babies or toddlers, some as old as 5 months, 6 months. And unfortunately, we still haven't found many of the families. A lot of the families were not, when we originally brought the lawsuit, the court ordered the government to tell us about all the families that had been separated. The government told us about 3,000 of them, which was far and away beyond what we had expected. But then it later came out through government internal reports that there were almost 2,000 more that had been separated that we didn't know about. And so we only found out about those relatively recently. We are now still searching for those families because they were separated so long ago. The phone information we have for them is largely stale and useless. And so we had to search on the ground in Central America, door to door, looking for those families with our NGO partners. And unfortunately, because of COVID, that search has had been put on hold. Some of those children were a year old when they were separated, and so now they've been separated for 2/3 of their life, and who knows how long more it is before we find them. So it's been a horrific situation, but the numbers only tell, I think, one part of the story. The 5,500 is mind-boggling, but again, it's, as anybody who does this work or just thinks about it for a second knows that behind each of the numbers is an actual family, a parent and a child. And it's been the human stories that have been so horrific. I remember in the very beginning of the case talking to a mother who got her 4-year-old son back. They were one of the first families we were able to reunite. And the mother said that the 4-year-old just keeps asking her, are men going to come in the middle of the night again and take me away again? And that's what the medical professionals told us. We understood intellectually, but just seeing it there firsthand, the kind of vulnerability and trauma that had set in with these children, how fearful they were that they were going to be taken away in the middle of the night. Another family from Honduras had a 4-year-old boy who needed glasses, and the family was modest means, and they were able to scrape together the money to buy him a pair of glasses, and fortunately were able to also buy him a glasses case. And the glasses case became the biggest thing in their life because they knew that if the glasses broke, it would be difficult for them to find the money to buy a second pair. When they came to take away the 4-year-old boy, he was fortunately wearing his glasses, but he didn't have his glasses cases with him. They didn't let him go back and get his glasses case. So all the mother thought about day in and day out was, can my little boy see But if his glasses break, will they get him a new pair? Will they give him a safe place to keep his glasses? And another father told us he has a 7-year-old boy, and all he asked was of the guards, can I at least have a few seconds to brace my son for what's going to happen, that you're going to take him away? They didn't give him the few seconds. They just screamed out, you're coming with us. And the little boy was terrified, being dragged away. There's a story after story of little babies and toddlers being torn from their parents' arms, screaming, sometimes often not even being allowed to say goodbye to their parents, the parents not being able to say goodbye to them, and the parents often just too scared to even ask where their children were going, for fear that if they caused any trouble, even asking where their kids were being taken, that their kids would be treated worse. Unfortunately, we are still fighting this and so many other policies, that there's been Democratic and Republican administrations, and not everyone agrees with what the ACLU thinks on immigration, and Democratic and Republican administrations haven't always agreed. But I think what we're seeing now goes well beyond any disagreement reasonable people can have about macro immigration policy. I think if there was one silver lining during the family separation crisis, that summer of 2018, it's that the public took to the streets and really said, we're not having this. We're not having little babies being taken away from their parents. Laura Bush came out and wrote an op-ed saying, look, my husband was the president, a Republican president, and we had disagreements about immigration policy with the other side, but we don't do this in America. The Pope came out, conservative religious leaders, tens of thousands of people in the street. And so I think that's what it's really going to take. As Sam talked about the courts, as important as that is, and we are fighting every day in the courts, I think any civil rights lawyer will tell you, and any civil rights advocate will tell you, that it's really important that people come out, and that's the most important thing, that there be absolute public outcry. So, I urge you all to push back, whether you're a lawyer or not, do that. I mean, obviously, and if you're a lawyer and advocate and can do additional things, that's fantastic. Two things that are maybe more directed at the young people in the audience. One has to do with something that happened to me in literally my first year at the ACLU, but something I think about almost on a monthly basis. In one of my first cases, I got sent down to Texas, and I was, my late 20s, on a big national class action, and I was going to meet with one of the plaintiffs, who was a very young woman from Central America. And the person who was helping me was a grassroots organizer down in Texas. And she was the same age as me, very young. And she brought me to introduce me to the plaintiff. And the three of us sat down, and the grassroots organizer did the talking, because my Spanish was not great. And she started by saying to the young woman, Lee is here from New York. He's a muy importante lawyer from Nueva New York. And she went on, and we had the conversation. And then afterward, I said very cavalierly to her, the grassroots organizer, you should have said I was a muy importante lawyer. And then she sort of smiled, and I went on my way. And about a few weeks later, I started thinking about that encounter and how she was so much wiser than I was, even though we were the same age, that she understood that this young woman who was in trouble needed to hear that there was somebody important helping her, and that I just didn't fully understand sort of what it meant to this young woman from Central America to have a lawyer helping her, and that this grassroots organizer wanted to start by saying to her, you're not alone. Someone is here to help you from the establishment, and it's going to be on your side. And I think I've thought about that literally every month of my career, how it's very important never to forget how, whether you're an advocate, non-lawyer, a lawyer, or anybody, just sort of from the establishment, how important it is to make people feel like they're not alone. But I think for you young lawyers, law students, young lawyers starting out, to never forget sort of how important your role can be and how much power you actually have to help people and how much they are looking to you. And then the other thing I would just end with do anything, no matter how small, help one immigrant at one time with anything, or whether it's an immigrant or someone else. I think back on my career, and I've had a lot of sort of higher profile moments and arguments in the Supreme Court and testifying before Congress and those types of things. But when I think about it, it's those sort of little moments of human interaction that will stay with you the rest of your life. And recently, before COVID, was in Tijuana, meeting with a father and son who had been separated for 5 months by the Trump administration, and they were finally back together. And I was talking to the father, and we had a long conversation. The little boy, who was 9 years old, was standing next to his father, just listening quietly. And after the father left, the little boy summoned up all his courage and came up to me, put out his hand, and shook my hand and said, "I just want to thank you for helping my family. I hope that you can continue to help my family." And I just thought about how much courage that took for a little 9-year-old boy to come up and thank a strange man. And I think that kind of human interaction will stay with you much longer than anything else. So it doesn't matter whether you feel like you're doing the biggest case or you're going to solve every problem. Just try and help one person. If that's all you can do, take one case, or you tutor one kid, or advocate for one person. Anything you can do, you'll feel gratified by it, and it will be critically important in this time for them to get help and to see that there are people trying to help them. So thank you again for this award. I am, as I said, extremely honored to be receiving this award from an organization that has been out there and fighting and in the trenches for so long. Thank you.